Breaking tonight, Buckingham Palace was never meant to feel like this. Lights blazing at midnight, senior aides rushing through corridors, medical teams summoned with the urgency of wartime protocol. Something had gone terribly wrong. Moments earlier, King Charles had been receiving routine monitoring. Now the situation had escalated into what insiders described as a red-level medical emergency. The kind of classification reserved only for the gravest and most unpredictable crises. Behind the scenes, panic rippled through the palace. Doctors spoke in clipped whispers, their expressions tight, their movements urgent. One advisor said the shift in the king's condition was sudden, sharp, and deeply alarming, prompting immediate intervention. What was expected to be a stable night had transformed into the most frightening moment of the king's reign. But while the palace fought to stabilise Charles's health, something even more unsettling was happening across London. At Downing Street, the Prime Minister's team reacted not with empathy, not with concern, but with calculation. Sources close to the situation revealed that Keir Starmer received the emergency briefing and immediately pivoted to questions about constitutional procedure, regency protocols and operational authority if the king became incapacitated. That tone, cold, logistical, uncomfortably strategic, sent shockwaves through those who heard it. Inside Buckingham Palace, disbelief quickly turned into outrage. According to senior courtiers, Starmer's behaviour felt less like a responsible head of government preparing for contingencies and more like a man scenting opportunity. His focus wasn't on Charles's well-being, but on the machinery of power that might shift if the king could no longer perform his duties. One palace official described the mood bluntly. It was as if the Prime Minister was already stepping into a role that wasn't his to claim. By dawn, the country was unknowingly standing on the edge of a constitutional precipice. The palace was battling a medical emergency. Downing Street was treating it like a political gateway. The trust between monarch and Prime Minister, already strained, was beginning to fracture under the weight of suspicion. And the public had not yet heard a single word. What started as a health scare was mutating into something much bigger, much darker, and far more dangerous. Britain was hours away from a crisis that would shake the foundations of the state. By the time Britain woke up the next morning, the palace was still locked in tense silence. No updates, no statements, no reassurances. But Downing Street, they weren't silent at all. They were busy. And before noon, something catastrophic happened. One of the Prime Minister's senior advisors leaked internal briefing documents to a major political correspondent. What those documents contained ignited the biggest constitutional firestorm in decades. The leak revealed that Starmer's team had drafted a contingency framework titled Regency Acceleration Protocols. The language was clinical, detached, and shockingly premature. It detailed how swiftly executive powers could shift if the king became incapacitated, and it did so with an urgency that had nothing to do with compassion and everything to do with opportunity. Even more explosive was the timestamp. The files weren't written overnight. They were created weeks before the king's health deteriorated. Inside palace walls, fury erupted. Advisors who had spent decades upholding quiet loyalty and constitutional restraint suddenly found themselves staring at proof that the Prime Minister had been preparing not for the monarch's welfare, but for what could be taken in the power vacuum. One senior royal official described it as the most cynical document I've ever seen from a sitting government. Another called it an attempt to manage the monarchy before the monarchy even knew it needed managing. And then came the breaking point. Buried in the leaked packet was an even more damning suggestion that the government should consider temporary oversight of the Crown Estate under the justification of national operational stability. To the palace, that was code for one thing, a power grab. Within minutes, phones were ringing across royal households: Kensington Palace, Clarence House, Sandringham. Advisors who rarely speak rushed into emergency conference calls. The phrase constitutional interference was repeated over and over. Meanwhile, the public sensed something was wrong. Markets dipped. Journalists crowded outside Buckingham Palace. Rumours spread like wildfire on social media. Everything from abdication speculation to unverified claims of cabinet factions pushing for emergency authority. And behind those locked palace doors, Prince William was said to be ashen with disbelief. For a man known for restraint, his reaction told insiders everything. This was no longer a political miscalculation. This was an intrusion into royal sovereignty. What started as a health emergency had exploded into an unprecedented struggle for power between the Crown and the government. The trust between King Charles and Prime Minister Starmer wasn't just strained anymore. It was detonating, and the palace was preparing to respond directly. While the silent veto and Prince's consent have shaken Westminster, the true shockwave comes from what insiders are calling the shadow cabinet of Kensington. This is not palace staff fetching tea or organising charity galas. No, this is a covert network of advisors, strategists and influencers handpicked by Prince William himself. Over the past 18 months, he has quietly recruited top minds from finance, tech, environmental advocacy and global diplomacy. These are people capable of executing initiatives at lightning speed, bypassing the bureaucratic red tape that paralyses elected officials. Westminster ministers watch in horror as the heir to the throne mobilises this elite team with surgical precision. Unlike the government, William's inner circle is not accountable to voters, committees or budgets. Their loyalty is singular, their mission crystal clear. Execute the Prince's vision for the future of Britain and beyond. This is not governance by parliamentary debate. It is governance by action, innovation and influence. From environmental projects like the Earthshot Prize to private diplomacy meetings with global leaders, William's operations are setting new standards for power outside official channels. And it's not just policy, it's optics, perception and trust. Every high-profile initiative, every media appearance, every strategic partnership is carefully designed to position William as a dynamic, modern leader the public can believe in. Far more effective, in appearance at least, than the elected government. Reports suggest ministers privately fume at how his actions make their own policies look irrelevant or obsolete. They cannot sanction him, cannot control his spending, cannot even publicly criticise without risking a constitutional scandal. Financial independence fuels this operation. The Duchy of Cornwall provides William with over $23 million annually, completely outside government control, allowing him to fund initiatives that rival national programmes. While ministers plead for budget relief and citizens tighten their belts, William invests in projects that enhance his influence, socially, environmentally and diplomatically. In essence, Britain now has two power structures operating simultaneously. One elected, constrained and slow-moving. The other unelected, nimble and privately financed, projecting influence both domestically and globally. And with every success, the government's margin of manoeuvre shrinks further. Prince William is not just shaping policy, he is shaping the very narrative of what leadership looks like in 21st century Britain. In the next part, we expose how this financial and organisational might allows him to dominate the media, control the narrative and win the information war, making elected officials look ineffective and obsolete at every turn. The battle for public attention has begun and Westminster is losing fast. For decades, the royal family followed a strict golden rule. Never complain, never explain. It was a strategy of silence and mystique. But in the digital era, silence is a liability. William has torn up the old rulebook. He now commands a digital media machine capable of delivering cinematic, emotionally charged content that goes viral within hours. Behind-the-scenes videos, high-production short films, social media campaigns, every piece is engineered to inspire trust, admiration, and influence public perception without ever uttering a political word. Contrast this with government messaging, stiff podium speeches, cautious press conferences, and leaked policy briefings that struggle to reach beyond traditional media. Every time William posts a video on social causes, mental health, homelessness, environmental action, he not only highlights the issues, but implicitly shames the government for their inaction. Ministers argue and debate in Parliament. He acts and shows results in real time. The optics are devastating for Westminster. This media dominance is not just about public image. It is a strategic lever of power. Public trust is shifting. Citizens increasingly see William as a proactive problem solver, while the government appears slow, reactive, and preoccupied with bureaucracy. Analysts warn this creates a dangerous precedent, the monarchy becoming a parallel centre of authority, one that shapes public opinion faster and more effectively than elected leaders. The stakes are domestic, but the ripple effects are global. Every viral initiative, every international project he showcases online strengthens his influence with world leaders and private sector giants, bypassing traditional diplomatic channels. The result? William controls not just the story of the monarchy, but the story of Britain itself. Next, Part 5 will reveal the nuclear option, how William is preparing to restructure the monarchy, streamline the royal family and confront constitutional limits, potentially reshaping the future of the British crown forever. What we're witnessing is not just evolution, it is revolution. We've seen the power of Prince William's shadow cabinet, his billion-pound war chest, and his media dominance. Now comes the moment that could redefine the monarchy itself. The nuclear option. Sources inside Kensington Palace reveal that William is preparing a radical, unprecedented restructuring of the royal institution, a strategy so bold it terrifies traditionalists in Buckingham Palace. The plan is ruthless in its efficiency. The sprawling monarchy of minor royals, ceremonial dukes, and endless aides, they are facing eviction. William's vision is a lean, high-impact monarchy focused solely on the direct line of succession. Subsidised housing, honorary titles and cushy allowances for distant cousins are set to disappear. Insiders report that family meetings have turned into desperate negotiations with minor royals pleading for mercy. But William remains unmoved. His objective is clear. Protect the monarchy by cutting the fat, streamlining the institution and insulating it from public and political attacks. But the nuclear option goes beyond personnel. It extends to the very heart of royal property. William is reportedly pushing to transform royal palaces from private fortresses into public self-funding assets, museums, galleries and community spaces, generating revenue while modernising the crown's image. This is no longer about mystique. It is about survival, relevance and resilience in a country increasingly sceptical of inherited privilege. Simultaneously, William is carefully navigating a constitutional tightrope. Every step of this transformation tests centuries-old rules. Prince's consent, shadow influence over legislation and media power are tools he is using to shift the balance of power subtly but decisively. Politicians in Westminster watch in horror. The elected government is slow, cautious and reactive, while the heir apparent moves boldly and unchallenged. The risks are enormous. One misstep, one scandal, one miscalculated message could trigger the Republican trap, an anti-monarchist movement ready to pounce. Yet if successful, William will not just inherit a throne, he will reinvent it. He will emerge as the first modern activist monarch. A king with a mission, a voice and an influence far beyond ceremonial duties. The era of passive ornamental royalty is ending. Rising from the ashes is a monarchy built for the 21st century, leaner, more powerful, digitally savvy, financially independent, and globally influential. For supporters, William is a visionary saviour of the crown. For critics, a constitutional earthquake waiting to happen. The next few years will determine not just who rules Britain, but what monarchy itself will mean for generations to come.